Hello everyone, Dana here. So this video that I'm making now, I've wanted to make for a long time. I want to talk about the reality of working in an Eikaiwa. So I've been living in Japan for about 3.5 years now, and when I first came to Japan, I worked for Nova, which is a famous Eikaiwa here in Japan. I worked there for about 2.5 years before I quit. So I want to share the instructor side of things, like what the work is like and how the company treats employees and that kind of thing. But I also want to talk about, from the student side, what I think about the quality of the material and the teaching and the students' potential to learn. Okay, so let's start from the instructor side. Of course, there are many different Eikaiwa, very big companies, very small companies, and they're all, I'm sure, very different. So I can only speak from my experience and from what my friends working in other Eikaiwas have told me. But basically, most Eikaiwa jobs are very low paying with no benefits. So we don't have our health insurance covered, we don't get social insurance, they don't pay our pension, nothing. And they also do a lot of shady things to try to pay their employees even less money. So for example, there are 10 minutes between classes, and these 10 minutes are considered not work. So we do not get paid for them. However, we're in the school and we are still helping with teaching. We're preparing for our next lesson. We're grading the previous lesson. And of course, we also need to squeeze in, basic human functions in that time, like going to the bathroom, getting a drink of water, maybe eating a snack, right? It's not just 10 minutes of doing nothing. So because they don't pay for those 10 minutes, they basically can make your hours under the amount to be full-time. So because you're not full-time, they don't need to pay your benefits. For example, I worked 3 full days, and then I worked 2 half days, which sounds like a nice schedule. And for the most part, it was okay. But the actual amount of time that I'm spending in the school is more than what I'm getting paid for. And the other thing is that they're usually perpetually understaffed. So they're always texting you like, can you come in tomorrow and work this extra shift? And because the pay is so low and people need money, a lot of instructors end up doing so much in what should be overtime but isn't overtime. So they end up working 6 or 7 days a week and they get really burnt out, and it's just a very tiring job, I would say. Especially teaching kids. It requires a lot of energy. The other thing is that there's really little chance to get a pay raise or a promotion. That's basically never gonna happen. And what ends up happening is that the instructors, after they gain some experience and, kind of get better at teaching English, they leave the Eikaiwa and they find a better job, which is thankfully what I did. So most Eikaiwa end up having a revolving door of new instructors who don't have the experience to teach English, as well as, some of the instructors that have left the job. So it's a lose-lose situation. It's bad for the instructors and it's also bad for the students. Another thing that can become a problem is the actual hours that you're scheduled. So when you're single, it's not so much of a problem, but because of the nature of the job, you're basically working when everyone else is free, and you're free when everyone else is working. So this is mostly okay if you're single, but it becomes a problem if you start dating someone seriously. You can never spend time together, and it really makes it difficult to fully enjoy living in Japan, like going on trips or, spending time with family and things like that is very difficult with a schedule like that. So I talked about negatives, but there are some positives. So first of all, Eikaiwas make it very easy to to get a working visa and move to Japan. So in my case, I basically applied to the first job I found online. They interviewed me once and then they said, great, you've got the job, and they sponsored my visa and I moved to Japan. They also set up my apartment and they helped with, for example, how to set up a bank account and that kind of stuff, like how to get yourself set up in a new country. So without that, I think it would have been very difficult for me to move to Japan. So I think that Eikaiwa are a good stepping stone from being in another country to moving into Japan and kind of setting up your life here. And then once you get established and you've gotten some English teaching skills, I think you're better off finding a different job. But I think the biggest positive about working at an Eikaiwa is that the students are wonderful. They are so kind, so interesting, and it was really a pleasure to teach the students there. And everyone was very social. They all knew each other because we had a lot of group classes, and yeah, it was just lovely. Like sometimes they would bring us in vegetables, and I don't know, sometimes they would buy little things like cookies for everyone in the office. And yeah, they were just very, very nice and just really rewarding to teach. Most students are very grateful that you're teaching them. They're very interested in other cultures. They want to hear about, for example, life in America and things like that. And they basically become like a friend, right? You see them every week. So you end up just having natural conversations with someone like friends. And that's really nice, especially when you might not have friends in the country yet and you might feel a bit lonely living in a new country. So that kind of connection with students it's just really nice, and I really appreciated that. Of course, not every student is great. Some were a challenge, but the good students far, far, far outweigh the bad students. So my favorite part of the job was the students, for sure. Okay, so I talked about the instructor side of things, but you might be wondering about the student side of things. Is it a good value to study at an Eikaiwa? And basically my answer is it depends. So I think that if you're looking for a cheap option for kind of keeping up your English level by having regular conversations with a native speaker, then I think it might be a good option for you. I also think that Eikaiwas are a very good place to socialize and meet other English learners, especially at Eikaiwa that have group lessons. So I think that if a group setting is what you're looking for, yeah, an Eikaiwa might work for you. But basically, my general opinion about this is if you're really serious about improving your English ability, I think the best thing would be to have your own English instructor, like a private instructor, either online or in person, that can really focus on you and what you want to learn and how you learn. Because Eikaiwas are basically like a factory. It's always the same textbook, it's the same methods of teaching for most students. Like we can only change it so much because we have to follow a certain curriculum. But as a private instructor, you know, people can teach whatever material you want. They can teach in totally different methods, that kind of thing. So I think you get a much more personalized and useful experience. Of course, the difficulty with this is that it's hard to find a good instructor. There are websites that you can use and things like that. If you can find your own instructor, it's generally going to be cheaper and they're going to be more able to tailor the lessons to what you want. And it also depends what age group we're talking about, because for adults, yes, of course, maybe you can learn well in an Eikaiwa setting, but I really think for young children, it doesn't really work. It ends up basically being too chaotic, especially in a group setting, for the kids to focus on learning. The material is also not very good. in my experience. It's really difficult for the kids to understand difficult concepts, and we're, at least at the Eikaiwa I worked at, we weren't allowed to speak Japanese. So even if we can easily explain the concept to the kids, we weren't allowed to. And all the kids really want to do is socialize amongst themselves and run around and terrorize each other. But for ages like 10 to 17, actually, I think that the Eikaiwa was pretty useful for those students. I saw a lot of improvement in this age group, and they were able to focus on the material, and generally they all did very well. Like, they would learn the new vocabulary, learn the new grammar, and I think it was also a good experience for kids that age to learn about other countries and cultures, and many of them expressed that they wanted to study abroad in the future. So I think that for that age group, it's a good experience and I would recommend it. Basically, my verdict is Eikaiwa works for some people and it doesn't work for other people, especially people who really want to seriously and maybe quickly improve their English skills, as well as small children. I don't think it works for those groups. But everyone has different experiences. This is just from my experience at One Eikaiwa. So if you've had different experiences as an instructor or a student, I'm very interested to hear about it. Please comment, let me know. That's all I wanted to share with you guys today. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye! チャンネル登録よろしくね。